Dinner for shoes, please.
Hello and welcome to an episode of Dinner for Shoes. It is today International Reducing CO₂ Emissions Day, which is the reason why we decided to partner with Cerofy on this episode. Today, we are headed to the Cerofy offices in New York. Cerofy is helping fashion brands become more sustainable. And we've had so many conversations on this podcast about sustainability, what it really means, greenwashing, eco-conscious brands. Obviously, we're not perfect, but companies like Cerofy are helping fashion brands get there one step at a time, and it's all about that one step at a time mentality. I am going to be interviewing Corina, who is my tattoo artist. I love her so much. We've talked about her before. I've referenced her before. Actually, in the tattoo episode, I even referenced her because she's done some of my absolute favorite tattoos, including Trisha's paw print. So Corina is the CEO and founder of Cerofy, and then we're also going to be interviewing Sydney alongside her, who is head of sustainability. And I learned so much from them. Let's go ahead over and interview them at their office, see what their day-to-day is actually like, what they wear, and how all of that affects the way they show up to work. And then we'll come back. I'll do a little recap about what I learned and the outfit behind the shoes. Go take a listen.
Welcome to Cerofy, the AI-powered sustainability intelligence platform for fashion brands. Transform complex supply chain data into actionable insights, helping you track impact, improve performance, and build trust with your consumer. Brands can generate verified impact labels and digital product passports that communicate your progress with clarity and credibility. Let's revolutionize sustainability for the fashion industry. Track, improve, build trust with Cerofy.
We are here at Cerofy, and we're going to talk about what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. I will let you both introduce yourselves, and you can talk a little bit about what attracted you to this company and where you've been before, and then we'll take it from there.
I'm Corina. I'm the founder and the CEO of Cerofy. And what brought me to Cerofy is I'm born and raised in Austria, and I moved to New York. I got recruited as an artist about 9 years ago. And then I moved here and I realized the problem with the plastic consumption in this country, and that people here live with such different values. Mm-hmm. Like they don't pay attention. There's a lack of education. They don't really pay attention to like sustainability. Oftentimes they don't even know what is sustainability. And everything is about this like fast pace of life that people don't pay attention to like details or what actually, what are the limited resources that we have from Mother Nature. And that's how I kind of like got more into sustainability, realizing the difference between where I grew up and the values I grew up with, and then moving here and seeing the big difference.
Mm-hmm. And you're a tattoo artist too.
I am, yes.
And actually, you have tattooed me a couple of times.
That's how I got to know you, exactly.
Yes, exactly. So how did you guys meet?
So we met actually through a mutual friend from where I went to college, who knew, I think she came up to me and she said that she had someone looking for someone who had startup experience, fashion experience, and sustainability experience. And she was like, I know just the person. Mm-hmm. So we got a drink and just realized we were really focused on the same things, and it would be good to work together.
I love that. Sydney, do you want to introduce yourself and just talk about where you've been before and what attracted you to Cerofy?
So I am the director of sustainability and product strategy at Cerofy. I started my career in fashion and merchandising. Right out of college, I started in New York at Ralph Lauren, and it was a very big contrast from kind of what my values had been in college. I went to college up in the woods and was outdoors a lot. So kind of being in the luxury realm was just a bit of shell shock. Mm-hmm. So about a year in, I moved out to San Francisco because that's where a lot of fashion brands that were more focused on sustainability were popping up. It was like Everlane was out there, Marine Layer was out there, Reformation had just launched in LA. Mm-hmm. So I moved out there and I ended up launching the merchandising division at Marine Layer, which was a wild experience for a lot of reasons. One, because I was 22 years old, and that's just startup world. But two, it was my first foray into what a mission-driven brand really means. Everything was made from a recycled beech tree fabrication, and everything was made in the U.S. by adults, and it was kind of, it was just so different from what I had been doing before. Yeah. So I loved that, was there for 2 years, and then I got recruited back to New York to launch the men's line at Madewell. that was a really cool experience because it was like a mini startup. I was the first and only hire, but I was in this larger company with the resources and mentorship that doesn't always come at like a real startup. And they were very sustainably driven. So I kind of got more and more involved in sustainability there. And then the pandemic hit and I was feeling very existential about kind of what my role was in the world
So
with
many
everything.
people were.
Yeah, there was
Weren't
going
we all?
on. My sister was a
What are we
doctor.
doing?
I was like, I'm selling clothes. But so I decided to launch my own sustainable brand. And I did that because I realized merchandising, by the time the product gets to you, so much is already baked in that I never get to see, right? I'm kind of more thinking about how it's going to sell, where we're going to sell it, how many we're going to sell, but not what it's made of or why or how it got made. So I kind of gave myself a crash course in that. And through that experience, just learned how much goes into it and how much I didn't know. So I then got my master's in sustainability to kind of learn more about that. And then started consulting for brands just to help them along the journey that I personally went through. And that's how I got connected with Corina. And we've really just been trying to build something to help brands along that journey and make it easier because it's not the easiest thing.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But also, how do you get your master's in sustainability? What school were you at? What is that like? Like, is it a long program or?
So there's different programs you can do. I actually did it in Columbia here in New York, which was nice. And it was a 1.5-year program if you do it full time. I did it full time, but you can do it part time, which would probably have been an easier way to do it. But you can kind of stretch that out by taking 2 classes a term. I think people can be there for almost like 6 years if you really did it as slow as possible. But I did it in 1.5 years. It was great. It's an industry agnostic program, so it wasn't necessarily all about fashion. And I thought that was important because my background had only been in fashion, so I wanted to kind of broaden my horizons. And I think when you're solving complex problems, you can learn so much from what people are doing in other industries and not get so like pigeonholed in your own space.
Totally. I love that. So, okay, walk us through like a typical day at Cerofy. Is it different every day? Do you have an agenda? What are people doing when you come into the office?
I think because we're a startup, every person wears so many different hats, and there is like no routine. Like there is not like we do this in the morning or this. It really depends on like what's the schedule. Do we have any calls? Do we have meetings with investors? Do we have meetings with we're in our beta phase right now, so we have beta brands. Like are there meetings with the beta brands, and then really tech team, and then where are the issues, what needs to be fixed, and then we just hire the LCA specialist. So every day is completely different. Like there is no routine. I hope we will get to a routine one day.
I'm sure you will.
Just a little bit,
Yeah. So do you feel being CEO and this kind of being like your baby and your dream, do you feel like having the creative brain, like you're a tattoo artist, you work with materials, is that kind of what led you to the sustainability realm, or to think about it a little bit more?
I think more so my upbringing and where I was raised brought me more into the sustainability part. But like the entrepreneurial thing, I do think that comes from like me being a creative my entire life. And more like when I work with clients, I have limitations, right? Like they tell me I want to have an elephant on my tiny wrist in a feminine way, right? So I have to find a solution to make one thing fit in like that category, kind of like. So, and I think this is how Cerofy also started, right? Like I saw like there's a problem and I needed a solution, and then I just like used the resources I had, which was, there was AI was out, blockchain was out, like different technologies. So I think I just like used the resources I had, and then just like, tried to come up with a solution.
Yeah, and I feel like you also just know a lot of people. I always feel like you have such great connections. Like I've been to one of your launch parties. Like I just think that networking helps.
Networking is really like it's something different. Like it brings you so much further oftentimes. And also like the advantage of being in New York. Like it is the hub, the fashion hub of like, so definitely helps you.
And Sydney, tell me, like, I think sustainability is kind of like a buzzword, like a big word. Some people don't even like to use it because it's such a broad term. But what do you think is kind of like a myth that fashion brands all believe, or even like people who shop at fashion brands believe?
I think the biggest probably myth right now is that there's like a one size fits all solution to sustainability, where it's like, what's this one easy, where it's the easy button where I can just press and everything's good and it'll work perfectly.
Yeah.
I think I even probably fell victim to that school of thought before I got more involved in it, and starting my own line realized it's so difficult. And what's difficult about it is that there's trade-offs, right? So let's say you really want to focus on your water reduction.
Mm-hmm.
Methods and strategies you might put into place to try to reduce that water might end up increasing your emissions. And that's something that you have to weigh.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when a brand tries to tackle everything, I tried to tackle everything, and you learn, you either have to charge $5,000 for your sweater or you have to make some choices.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a good exercise for shoppers, but also for brands to really think about their values and what makes the most sense for their brand. Because, I mean, it's kind of like when people say, if you do what you love, you'll be better at it than if you're kind of like forcing it every day. Brands that are going to force these strategies that aren't actually in line with their goals,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you see a lot of friction. And I think that's when the word sustainability becomes a bit polarizing, because sometimes then profit and purpose are not aligning.
Yeah.
But when brands actually think about, okay, what's the root of our DNA and what matters, and when shoppers think about what are my values and how can I find a brand that aligns with that, then it happens a little bit more naturally, and it's kind of better for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. So walk us through what happens when like a brand comes to you. I know you're still in beta mode or whatever, but when, you're up and running, what is going to be the first step? And do you feel like that is going to change based on the brand and what's important to them? Is there any like red flag that you always look for first in a brand where you're like, okay, that needs to go? Like, what will you do?
So we actually are working with beta brands right now. I think
Okay.
we have about 10. And it's different. So the brands might come to us and say, we just talked to a brand the other day that was like, we're just starting and we just want to make sure that we get off on the right foot. Like,
Mhm.
what are the 3 most important things we can do?
Right.
Which, like we just spoke about, it's not always so easy to say. Other brands might come to us and say, we've been working really hard to choose responsible materials and to really, make a big effort in talking to our suppliers, and just they're doing the best that they can.
Mhm.
They want to be validated and see what the actual metrics look like, and to see, are we making the right choices? And is this material actually better than the other one that we got rid of last year?
Yeah.
So the process looks different kind of depending on the stage that they're at. More of our brands are in the latter camp where they've taken steps and they just want to know, are we doing the right thing? And
Mhm.
if not, what should we be doing instead? I think the biggest roadblock that everyone kind of runs into is the actual data that you need, right? So our whole job is to take their data, run what's called a life cycle assessment, which basically gives you, it just tells you how much water, how much carbon, how much land you're using to make an actual product. It's a bit of a imperfect method, but it's the best method we have right now to weigh apples to apples and to compare 2 t-shirts to one another.
Mhm.
But in order to do that, and think about a math equation, right? You need the numbers. So a lot of these brands, it's very typical for brands to have visibility into what's called their tier 1 supplier. That's their actual factory that, if you think about someone cutting and sewing a garment.
Mhm.
Tier 2 is usually where they get their finished fabrics from. Some brands source their own fabrics, so they might have visibility there. But a lot of brands, especially when they're just starting out, their tier 1 factory will source their fabric for them.
Okay.
So they might not even know where it's coming from.
Yeah. Interesting.
There's also tier 3 and tier 4, tier 4 being like the farm that the cotton is grown on. It's very rare for brands to actually have visibility there, even when they want to. A lot of the finished fabric suppliers don't often want to share where things are coming from because maybe it's not the best, or they just fear, it's a scary thing putting out information about yourself.
Yeah.
So the biggest hurdle, I think, for brands when they're starting is just mapping out their supply chain and figuring out what they know and what they don't know,
Mhm.
asking for more information, which always gets a little bit sensitive, trying to get that information, and then we can actually start measuring, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
I see why so many people get discouraged.
Right.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's the case of like a brand just starting. So imagine you are a brand that makes over 30 million in revenue
Mhm.
annually, right? Like you have so much data, or you might not even have the data, right? So then
Yeah.
just for a brand to start thinking of, okay, what is the data I need? Where do I get that data from? To really get insights about their products that they've been selling for years. So we also work with brands that have been in the business for a very long time and want to start somewhere. And like, the brand can like use their filters and say, my goal is by 2030 to reduce my carbon emission by 30%. Or I have $100,000 to invest in sustainability and stuff like that, right? So I think the goal is also to validate brands for their efforts and not just say, okay, this brand is 100% sustainable and now you can market it out there. Really like communicating, like we're making efforts to the best we can, and our goal is really to get better and better and better. And that's where we also come in and help them and support them.
Got it. So you talked a lot about like analyzing where the brand is, where it's been. Do you use any tools? Like, are you using AI yet in what you do in your day-to-day? Is there anything like futuristic about your jobs that you're excited about?
I mean, there's a lot of futuristic things and a lot of like technology where we like every day have to like learn, and AI is growing so fast. Like when we started with Cerofy, AI was already out there. This is also kind of like the base of our software is AI, and AI makes it possible, especially what Sydney mentioned earlier with like the Scope 3 emission, where it comes from all the way from the start, right? Like AI helps so much with mapping the data, analyzing the data, and also realizing the gaps. And what we do is these scenario analysis, right, where we can tell a brand before they make the decision and before it goes into production, what would be the impact, right? So really to figure out their profit margin, really figure out, does it make sense? Like Sydney mentioned earlier, sometimes you think if you would change to this recycled material, that would be better, but the dye might be really terrible and drives your carbon emission up, right? So AI is a really, really heavy part of our software and of our company. And every day there are new things, happening, and we're learning every day when it comes to AI, which is very, very interesting.
Probably makes it so much quicker than it would have been years ago.
Like it probably saves like years. It's really interesting. Like even on a daily basis, using ChatGPT, using just the data mapping and everything, and even brands, right? And Sydney can speak more to this, that use Excel sheets and really like spend hours on like mapping and researching materials, where now there is a software and it takes a second to do so.
AI can build an Excel sheet for you in like 2 seconds.
Like in 2 seconds, really.
Wow.
And there's something controversial about AI and using AI for sustainability. But then, it's like a very interesting topic to talk about, and I think about a lot. But then the goal is like, people always ask, how much carbon emission does AI produce? But then how much carbon emission can it eliminate, right? Or like reduce, and just, so I think it's like a very interesting question when it comes to technology and futuristic things and sustainability.
And you want to help brands reach their goals as quickly as possible. So it's like, how can you say no to using a tool like that?
If a brand can reduce carbon emission by 30% and AI produces 2%, like that makes sense. Like, the goal is really to eliminate carbon emission and avoid it completely,
That makes so much sense. Okay, so Sydney, talk to us greenwashing a little bit. What does it really mean when a brand greenwashes now? And like, can they be greenwashing in one area but not in another?
Yes. So greenwashing is very complex. It's also not very black and white, like everything in this space. People could be greenwashing very intentionally and just be lying, and that would be greenwashing. But also, things are happening where there was a law just passed in England, and some brands got into hot water because they actually were potentially, they're saying, doing the work to validate their claims, but they are, if you're trying to put something on Instagram really quickly, people aren't reading a novel. You want to keep it really short, but then maybe you're not giving actually the data points that back it up. And there's these laws in place now that are trying to protect, they're doing the right thing by trying to protect consumers from false information. But at the same time, it's kind of what Corina was saying before of, if a brand's working really hard, but they're not perfect, they should be able to speak to that and not get reprimanded. So I don't know the right answer, because everyone's trying to just do the right thing, but there can be, gray area greenwashing or blatant greenwashing. But I think that's also, some brands come to us for that, because by using our technology, they can get real metrics. So instead of just saying, we use this recycled polyester, which is great, to Corina's point, maybe that isn't great, or, polyester sheds a lot of microplastics, especially when it gets broken down and recycled. So maybe that's not being talked about.
Right.
By using our software, you can kind of get the real metrics, and instead of just saying we're great because we use recycled fibers, you can say we reduced our carbon by switching to this fiber by 26%.
Okay.
And then, they're not just speaking vaguely. So I think we can really help with that. But also, like I said before, there's no one size fits all solution where, you did this, you use this one fabric, you're perfect.
Yeah.
So it just gets into like, what are you looking to learn and what's enough?
Okay, that makes sense.
And greenwashing is like these false environmental claims. That's what greenwashing means. And it's like, if you can't back up what you say with data, like how do I as a consumer know what do you actually, like, is it true or not? It's same with like food, right? Nutrition. Like, how do we know it's organic? If they put a sticker on, like, we trust the sticker.
Right.
So there is no transparency. And I think that's what we're also trying to do with Cerofy, is to avoid greenwashing and back up these claims and tell them, why is this a better product? And then, give consumer access to data, literally create transparency between brands and their consumers. And I think the younger generations, but also like millennials and like old, like, transparency, especially with internet and everything, people want to know more what's behind a slogan, what's behind a word and a brand. So I think transparency becomes more and more important, and this is how we can avoid greenwashing.
Yeah, I actually was watching one of the reels on your Instagram page, and I think you guys, like, it was kind of like man on the street style, and you were asking people, like, would they read certain labels, like what would they look for as a consumer? Are you going to work with brands on that step? And what would that look like? Like, will it be a tag inside the clothes? Will it be something different?
Yeah. The goal is to work with brands on like how they present their sustainability efforts. And then, so there will be like a label kind of like on the website, right? Where when you go on whatever brand's website and you look at that shirt and then it has the Cerofy label on it, you can click and actually see, why is it certified? Why is it a better product? Get more transparency. And eventually the consumer facing part where, when you go shopping and there is a tag with a QR code and you as a consumer can easily scan it, see exactly why I might pay a little bit more or not, or why am I choosing this product because it's more green, right?
That's great. Okay, so tell me, what type of brands have you guys been working with so far?
Obviously fashion brands, but we also have a brand that's footwear, right? Like these are like very specific sustainable made heels, very functional. But then we have a brand from Colombia that focus on swimwear. We have a knitwear brand. Who am I missing? A lot of brands.
We have brands based in India that do dresses, really everything. Oh, we have a faux fur brand. It really runs the gamut, which has been really interesting for us because, with like footwear, there's so many more components than to a cotton t-shirt. Or faux fur is really interesting because it's, using real fur is obviously problematic, but then faux fur is usually made from synthetics. So there's just, it's been really interesting for us, but also for our clients, and also in building the best platform we can build to really address all types of different garments. Swimwear, activewear, if it needs to be stretchy and waterproof, that usually is synthetic, right? So it's been a fun challenge, I think, for everybody.
Has it been challenging for you because you have come from brands that maybe you haven't worked with, like a footwear brand before? Like, have you learned anything that's kind of been eye-opening in the process?
Definitely. I definitely have learned a lot. There's, something like footwear, there's so many different components and things to think about. Things like accessories don't get talked about as much. And our platform does what's called a gap analysis, and it can basically just show the client really quickly where the holes are. And that's been really interesting because it's things that, down to your label, your size label. Where did that come from? Where is that made of? Or what is it made from? And a lot of brands don't know that, and they don't even think about that. That's the last thing they're thinking about. So it's been interesting for us just to learn about, buttons, zippers. There's so much that goes into a garment that you need to think about. So it kind of is a daily reminder for us about that as well.
Wow. Okay. I feel like I could talk to you guys all day because I'm learning so much. But my last question for you is just like, what do you wear to work on a normal day? Is this what you normally wear? Do you, like, working for a brand that is trying to help brands become more sustainable, do you think about it in a different way when you get dressed?
Definitely. We all kind of work remote and in the office, so I can't pretend that I get dressed nicely every single day.
Sometimes it's sweats. Yeah.
I do think it has affected the way that I shop. Even from 10 years ago when I started kind of getting into this and realizing what was going on, I'm much more into shopping secondhand or into renting. I went on a trip this weekend and rented a bunch of stuff. There's just so many different options to not buy new. I've also been shopping in my mom's closet a lot lately, which has been really fun. It was
so
a great source of some, maybe not vintage yet. She'd not want me to say that, but older stuff. But yeah, I think it's just, you think about it a lot more, and we're learning so much more about, maybe I hadn't thought as much about shoes. And now I think, oh my gosh, what is in this? Where is it made from? How can I do better? So I see it more in how I add or don't add to my closet kind of every day.
Yeah. I also think it's nice when you actually think about the things that you wear, right? Like how many people touch them in the manufacturing process, or where they come from and how they're made. You naturally add so much more value to a product. Like if I just buy a legging for $7, like I'm gonna wear it a few times, wash it, it's not good, I'm gonna throw it out. But if I actually think about how many people touch it, where does it come from, what's the material, what's the sourcing, like it adds so much more value. Like you spoke about your mom closet, like this blazer, for example, my mom wore this when I was baptized in Austria.
That's
like
incredible.
I'm gonna say my age now, about 36 years ago. It's like a long time ago. And it's like, it adds so much value. So I take better care of this product. I repair it when a button gets loose or something. And I think if we just keep the story around like products, they last longer in our closet, and we pay attention where they end up and not just in the landfill and stuff like that. So these like little things add a lot of value to your closet.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. And I think it's like very cool when you can know the story behind the piece that you're putting on each day, and even like form your own memories in it and then think back to them when you put it on again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you guys. This
Thank
was so much
you.
fun.
Thank you.
Welcome back, and thank you for listening and checking out the offices at Cerofy with me. Actually, the offices are incredible, really beautiful building, and it was so easy to get to, and I had so much fun being there and starting my morning. I learned so much about how Cerofy can use technology to help brands really get to the root of their issues. And as Sydney broke down for us, it's not simple, it's not easy. Greenwashing is such an important term because there are so many different aspects of how to be an ethical company and make sure that your production is really as environmentally friendly as possible. And it's impossible to target it all at once. Cerofy can't just start working with a brand and instantly make them sustainable. We know it doesn't work like that. As we mentioned during the conversation, we even know that something like AI, which is very useful technology, uses things like water and some of our resources. But like Corina mentioned, it is so important to look at what it can do to help us become more sustainable. And that is even more important and weighs more than the water that AI uses to work, right? I carefully curated my outfit behind the shoes today just to be super eco-friendly. I picked brands that I think do really great things and are at least on their way to becoming more sustainable. And I feel like Cerofy could even help them further, of course. So for the outfit behind the shoes, let's get into it. First of all, I realized that I've never worn my VIVAIA sock boots on dinner for shoes, hence the red plate, the reason why we went with red today. I am obsessed. VIVAIA literally makes their shoes from recycled plastic water bottles. Sorry if you hear Kit playing with her little ball, which is so cool. A lot of them are washable. They're all made from really comfortable fabric. When I tell you these are the most comfortable boots I own, it is by 1,000 miles, not even a million, not even 1 mile, 1,000 miles. These are so comfortable. The sole of them is also super forgiving, really, really comfy footbed. It's almost like cushioned, but it still offers support. I love these because they just offer a little pop of red. So whenever I'm trying to add color to an otherwise kind of neutral look, I go for these, and they're definitely a winter boot for me. So let me put them back on. Oh, I also love the red tab on the back. I just think that's cool. They're also a cool way to like get into the boot, you know? And then I'm wearing my Reformation jeans. As you guys know, I think every fashion brand that I'm wearing today could do better. And if you use the app, good on you, and you kind of dig into what each fashion brand is doing when it comes to producing their product more sustainably, you're going to find like, oh, they're transparent here, but maybe not so much there. And as we know from talking to Sydney and Corina, their goal is to just help a brand reach specific goals when it comes to being eco-friendly, eco-conscious, and reducing their carbon footprint. This blazer is from a collaboration between Argent and Citizens of Humanity that was produced super sustainably. So that is great. And then I'm wearing a Left on Friday white tee that I also wear as like a workout tee. And all of my jewelry today, aside from my engagement ring, is Jenny Bird. Jenny Bird is also a sustainable jewelry brand that you should look into if you love really nice pieces, particularly gold. I am wearing one hoop that's silver and one hoop that's gold because I actually lost one of my gold hoops. One of these gold hoops, sad. But I love mixing metals. So I tend to do that often when it comes to my earrings. And that is the outfit behind the shoes today. I hope you learned so much. I hope that you make more conscious decisions and that Cerofy helps a bunch of the brands that you actually already shop from as a consumer get to a better place. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Pause. Pause.
Maybe not now.
Okay. We're almost done. I have one more question after this.
It's been good so far.
And we do a gap analysis, which